And fed us and put us on the beach, so somebody's gonna get out their hammock in a minute. So good to see everyone. I think I was appointed to the speaking committee by the Equal Opportunity Commission. And I'm not as cool as the other people on the other side of this sandwich, but I sure am proud to be here. Yeah, Chris is lying. My jokes are awesome. He was just so deep in grief he couldn't appreciate them. I will share some of them with you afterwards, and some of them even in mixed company, and they're amazing to me. And my son, he's got home from college last night. He told me I got jokes, but I got dad jokes. So I think you know what that means. I ask Cale to go ahead and put up our first slide. I mean, like a bargain. Yes, sir. You like a bargain? Some of y'all don't. I've seen you close. And I don't know what you paid, but you didn't buy it where I shop, because some of you have invested in your look, and it's good. But maybe you shopped well and it was a bargain, but it looks like to me some of y'all have made some good investments. I like a bargain. I was at Costco last night. Anybody got a Costco membership? Yeah. I had a Sam's membership. I was living a lesser life. But I was like Apollo, and somebody came to me and explained to me a more excellent way. I went over to Costco. You can go to Costco hungry and you can walk away full. They got ladies and men in there. They got those samples, and you can just go around. And if you kind of put your hat on one time and then take your hat off next time, they don't notice, and you can keep eating. But I'm always a danger to spend $400 when I walk in Costco at any time, because I'm a bulk buyer. I love a bargain. If it's on sale, even if I don't need it. I came home one time. I think I had 16 rolls of paper towels. We had nowhere to put it. And my wife is just looking at me like, what are you going to do now? Make messes so you can use the paper towels? I'm like, honey, it was a bargain. That was months ago. We still got paper towels. Got them everywhere. We've all made a bargain today. And the truth is, this is the bargain. If you love, you lose. Now, if you don't love, you don't get to play, which is worse. But if you love, you lose. And that's grief. Chris has already said it. Grief is the price that you pay to love somebody. Because in our world of time and space, there's no loving and keeping, there's only loving and losing. And we're all here today because in some sense we're grappling with that reality. And we're trying to put our heads around it, which is difficult enough. But if you try hard enough, you can get your head around it. But moving it down 14 inches and getting your heart around it is a lot harder. Because that 14 inches is the longest journey in the world. To get understanding from here to here about loss. We have to learn how to lose. To learn how to lose. We make a bargain with life in that we give love to time and to a person. And love, time, and a person is not a trinity that stays together. Love, time, and a person will be separated. That's just the way it is. Now, if you want to protect your heart, you go ahead. But C.S. Lewis said by the time you're finished, it'll be cold and shriveled and full of death. We can live in a way that engages death and leans forward into life. Or we can try to shield ourselves from death And rather than disengaging, death will engage us and take us over. Those are the choices. You didn't ask to be human. That was to do with your parents. But here you are. And so we have to deal with it one way or the other. We give love to time and a person, and time takes the person and gives us back grief. That's the deal. That's the way it works. And Chris said it right. It's okay to acknowledge that. Even as persons of faith, somewhere along this journey today that our MC mentioned, we have ceased being a conference and we have become a congregation. If you didn't feel the Holy Spirit walking here, check your meter. Because he's walking among us and moving today, and he's doing work. We've already felt it. We are a community. We're a community of grievers, but we're also a community of believers. And we are a community of helpers. We are a community of caregivers. We're a community of healers. And we are a community of lovers. And that makes us a community of God. How many are thankful to be part of that community today? Now, we're talking about men. And Kale, if you hit the next slide. Men are taught to win. And I appreciate our beautiful females who are here today. We were pretty ugly till you got here. Thanks for coming. You have improved the average. It wasn't difficult, but you did. Thank you for coming. But I want to speak specifically to men today in that men are taught to win. We're going for the trophy. They're going to play a basketball game a little bit southwest of here tonight. They're going to pay those young men millions of dollars. In fact, some of them will earn, one of them going to earn about $500,000 tonight to step out on the floor, and he's not there to finish second. Because we teach men that in order to be a man, you're supposed to win. Get the trophy. And I'm not talking about the Millennial Participation Trophy. I'm talking about the real trophy. I'm not talking about the most improved, but the winner. We want to make our mark on life. We want to have agency. We want to have control. We want to have an influence, and we want to make our mark on life. If you're a man and you don't feel that, you miss the memo. That's our culture. And to some extent, it is our God-given birthright. You know, God gave Adam a job before he gave him a family. That'd be a good marker for everybody. And we are designed to do things. We're designed to leave a mark. We're designed to be creative. We're designed to be designers. We are designed to be creators. We're designed to be people who have influence. And that's what it means to be a man. We want to make our mark. But the truth is, while we as men want to make our mark in life, sometimes life makes its mark in us. You see, Patton said that grief is limit and loss. That's what Chris told us. And we grieve when we recognize that we as men, no matter how hard we try, cannot shape the world into the picture that we would like to see. Now, that happens on the job. It happens in our health. It happens in our communities. But the most challenging aspect of that is in our relationships. When we lose in our relationships, that's where the pain gets acute. And there are all kinds of loss and limit that can be faced in that as we negotiate what it is to love another person. The next slide, Cale. This is a diary from Teddy Roosevelt when he was 25 years old, before he became president, 1886. February 14th. That's the day of love, day of relationships. And Roosevelt has made a mark in his diary because life has made a mark in him. Earlier that morning on February 14th, Valentine's Day, Roosevelt watched as his mom died. He was with her. Later that day, 3 days after his daughter Alice had been born, he watched his wife take her last breath. In 24 hours, as a brand new father, Teddy Roosevelt lost the woman who gave him birth and the woman who birthed his daughter. And he's left with one of the 3 women in his life to raise without his partner and without his guide. The words, in case you can't read it, said, "The light has gone out of my life." Loss and limit will try to take the light away from you. And it will try to drag you into darkness. That's a journey that we all can take if we choose. And as already been said, it is not a journey of agency, it's a journey of passivity. All you have to do to get dragged into darkness is nothing. Get out on the beach and start walking, and if you don't swim, the undertow will do its business and take you where you don't want to go. You just have to lie back and let it. But the human condition is not given to those who have to settle for gravitational or oceanic or sociologic or spiritual force. We have an opportunity to be an active agent in our own journey. We have an opportunity to choose what our grief journey looks like for us. Although we cannot shape the world into the world we would like for it to be, we can shape our journey to determine the destination where we'd like to go. I can speak with authority on the subject, not just professionally, and some of the stories that were talked about today, I've been an intimate part of, because I've been privileged to be part of CP's family and part of Jeffery's family for a long time. But I also have had my bouts with the undertow. When I was a senior in high school, my stepfather died. He had multiple sclerosis, and his journey was a slow declension from a proud man of personal strength into a man who could not take care of himself in any way anymore. All of his personal care needs had to be met. My mother had married him 4 or 5 years before, and as a high school senior, while everybody else was out chasing cheerleaders, can we be honest? I was changing diapers because it's what my role was to do. And when he left, there was loss, because it wasn't a relief to me to be rid of the opportunity to give love. It was a grief to me to lose the opportunity to serve him, because by that time, it wasn't a duty, it was a privilege. I got to college and my grandmother died of leukemia. When my grandmother died, you would have had to have known her, but I hope every one of you had this kind of a grandmother. She was happiest when the house was rollicking and loud. I had 3 uncles, the smallest of whom was 6'3" and 285 pounds. Those 3 men from Mississippi, those are my uncles. But they were from Henderson County. They probably could score a 30 on the ACT. They. Wonderful men. Wonderful, loud. I remember one Thanksgiving, they decided it would be great to use my granddad as a hacky sack. Now, my granddad was 6'1" and 300 pounds. And you should have seen my uncles throwing my granddad across the living room. And my grandmother saying, "Put him down." That was my grandmother. She loved food, she loved faith, she loved family, and she loved big. Nothing my grandmother did was small. And when she died, my world got 3 degrees colder, and it's never warmed up since. You don't get over grief. You just get through life. If you're waiting to get over it, stop. It's just going to add disappointment to your sorrow. It's not something we get over here. Because as Chris said, if you love and you lose, you're going to grieve. I went on through life, and later on I've lost both of my parents. I was privileged to be with them while they drew their last breath. I've found that memory of those relationships is a tricky thing because, you see, the brain is not a DVR. We don't remember life. We remember our memories of life. That's why his mother had the coat and the smell. It's the last sensation to go. And you get scared when you can't remember what their face looked like. You get scared when you can't remember, and the Thanksgivings all run together and the Christmases all run together. And you're scared of losing even the memory of that person because you recognize that you're not a recorder, you're just a human being. Those memories that you have, inaccurate as they are, constructions as they are, not recordings, not pictures, but really paintings of what life was. They're bittersweet. Some memories are for the good times you had and you lost. And that's more sweet than bitter. Good times, not here anymore. But you can remember them because it's sweet. Other memories are for the good times you never had, and therefore were never yours to begin with. Those memories are more bitter than they are sweet. I got both. Because my relationship with my father and my relationship with my mother were two different things. They were two different people. I loved both of them, and in their own way, they loved me. But there was an absenteeism and a presenteeism that led to a difference in the memories. And so holding both sides of that, sometimes when we lose, Chris talked about how death can be complicated by guilt, and there's not just sorrow there, but for the loss of the relationship. There's sorrow for the loss of the relationship that began before the relationship ended. And that can affect people's responses. But there's also times when we lose some of our loved ones and we recognize that the breach of the relationship really had little to do with us. And rather than being angry at ourselves, we can sometimes be angry at the person who left. And we can wonder what it was about us that wasn't enough for that person to invest in. That's a different type of challenge. It's a different type of grief, and it's a different type of loss. So here we are, and we move through that door, Cale, into the room of grief. And we've arrived, and we say, okay, well, I'm in this room, and here I am. So I'm going to get through this. I'm going to tackle this. I got a 5-point plan. I'm going to read about it. I'm going to study about it. I got 3 scriptures, and I'm going to put them on my refrigerator. I'm going to say the Lord's Prayer backwards and chew crackers, and we're going to, get this special essential oil. I'm going to put that on the Cincy thing. That's the women's conference for grief. And I'm going to do all of this, and that's going to make it right. Or I'm going to intellectualize it. I'm going to use my professional training, and I've been associated with death, and I understand death. And I'm going to talk to all these people. I'm going to read this. I tell you what, I'm going to go to the Oprah Book Club. I'm going to double down. And I'll fix it. And I'll go through my denial, my bargaining, my anger, my depression, and my acceptance, and I'll get to the green at the end, and I'll move through it. This is a lie. All cartoons are lies. It's oversimplifications of complicated realities that people sell you as a consultant so that they can stand on the stage and charge you money. Wow. The truth is, grief is not sequential. There is no graduation. You're not going to get a ribbon. And just because you're at anger today doesn't mean you won't go back to denial tomorrow. My mama's not going to die. God's going to heal my mama. The scan doesn't mean what you say it means. God's not ready for her yet. What do you mean this has come back? These are phrases that we hear, sometimes phrases that we say. God, if you'll do this for me, then I'll do this for the community. Or I'll change, I will if you, and we're on clause 37 because we think we can Gaddy, Keltner, Bienvenue, and Montesi Jehovah into doing what we want him to do. You better call 628-7000. Because 777 doesn't work that way. God's not a slot machine. Turns out Jesus is not Santa. And we just live in life. I believe in the miraculous. I pray for it. I believe in a God who responds to human request. I believe in our personal spiritual agency for having a valence in the world around us. I believe that we co-create the future with a creative, traveling God who walks with his people in a life journey. I don't see life as a mechanistic pinball machine where all has been predetermined. But the fact is, my perspective is not normative. My understanding is not determinative. And my value is not God's volition. He reserves the right to stay in his chair, and he reserves the right to put me in my seat. So, you probably do encounter, Kubler-Ross said that these were stages. In the late 60s, she interviewed about 500 dying people and people associated with dying people. And she looked through the grieving process and she said, okay, there's denial, bargaining, anger, depression, acceptance. Everybody seen this before? Y'all familiar with this? The lie is not that it doesn't happen. The lie is that it's progressive and that you don't return. Grief is cyclical, but it's not a merry-go-round. Let me offer a word of encouragement to you. If you found yourself back at denial for the third time this week, it's not a merry-go-round. It's a spiral. You do come back to where you have been, but when you do that, you can do it on a higher plane than you were last time. So you can make progress even while you're going in circles, so long as you're on a mountain, not a merry-go-round. So stop playing and start climbing. There's a proper way to approach our hurt. You know, the truth is, against real loss, bumper sticker wisdom only goes so far. Everything happens for a reason. Well, it does. But sometimes the reason is somebody wasn't driving right on the interstate. Everything happens for a reason. Ask the family of the FedEx truck driver from Canada Road what the reason is. Everything happens for a reason. Oh, this too shall pass. And a pat on the back. God deliver us from soulless comforters who offer words that relieve them from the emotional pain and don't help us to heal. If all you can do is say a patty cake that gets you through the moment and makes you feel better, stop trying to comfort people. You're part of the problem. Joe's friends were fine till they opened their mouth. Comforting, grieving people is better by presence than it is by professions. Sitting listening, touching, helping. And by all means, God bless you, cooking. Comfort food is a phrase for a reason. That helps. You'll get over it. No, I don't believe that. More like you'll get through it. But I'm not really sure I believe that either. Because I can tell you, of the griefs that have come to my life, I can tell you I've gotten through it, but I really haven't. Because the me that is on the other side of those experiences is a different me than the one who entered those experiences. And although I'm here, that me is not. So if you rewind 15 years ago, before my divorce, the me that's here is not the same me. That clay didn't get through the grief. But here I am. Because I chose to be renewed. Now, judge me if you want, but losing my grandmother, losing my stepfather, losing my father, and losing my mother was not the greatest grief of my life. The greatest grief of my life was being hated by the person who said she would always love me. That was a lot tougher. I never contemplated suicide with the biologic loss of relationship. But with the emotional loss of relationship, I spent years planning my death. Years. Years in the pulpit, planning my death. Years in the clinic, planning my death. Figuring out how I could end the pain that I was having without inflicting more pain on other people around me. I got it down to where I would only have to hurt 2 people because my son would not know what had happened to me, and my mother was still alive, and she would not be able to talk to me anymore. But I decided to step away from that journey because it was a journey of negation of faith. So that was my grief. What did I learn from it? I didn't get to meet all of you, so I'll share with you in the break. What I learned from it is grief is not final if you stay in the game. Because the person that I was most angry at and the person that I most wanted to change behaviors today is my friend. My son's mother's not my enemy. God has done a wonderful reconciliation in that relationship to where we're not enemies, we're friends. But that would not have happened if I had taken the pain exit and refused to go through the journey. What I learned was the way that I see the world is not the way the world is. I'm a little sadder than I used to be, but I'm a lot wiser than I used to be. And I'm also a lot less likely to take for granted what I should take for gratitude. That's what the school of grief taught me. It also taught me that as Christians, the ground of life is found in God, and the guide of life is found in the biblical text. People who tell you you should not grieve because your loved one is Christ have not truly considered the human condition. They don't mean ill, they just haven't thought it through. Because if anybody should know what being with God was, the Son of God should know. And faced with death, he grieved. If anyone should know what it was to be in Christ, his initial apostles and disciples should have known, and yet faced in Acts 9 with the death of Tabitha. What did they do? They did the same thing your mother did. They got the robes that Tabitha had made, and they were holding them and handling them and saying, look what she made, look what she did. And that's what we do when someone we love leaves. We take their works and the things associated with them, the intimacy of what they created and the intimacy of what they wore, the intimacy of who they were. And we say, look. And it's a shared community. We say, we don't like the fact that we can't enjoy what this person brought and the joy that they brought us anymore. They wept. Jesus wept. But after Jesus wept, which he did in commonality with us, Gail, he experienced what we experienced. He grieved Lazarus' loss. Even knowing what he knew, he went through the journey. Because it's prophesied in Isaiah 53 that he's borne our griefs. You know, Jesus said, come to me, all you labor and heavy laden, I will give you rest. If you're tired, you're not doing it right. He said, you put your hand to the plow and look back. Has anybody got any sharecroppers in your family history? Now, if your ironing meter is not on, here's a white guy in Memphis asking a predominantly African-American crowd if y'all got any sharecroppers. Now, the reason why I can ask that, my great-grandfather was a sharecropper. My grandfather, the big guy they throwing around the living room, he was a sharecropper. And you know anything about plowing, you don't plow one-handed. You can be over there or over here. Plow like this, right? We got still any real Memphians around? Y'all got it? Jesus said, if you put your hand to the plow. The issue is, you don't plow one-handed. So who's got the other hand on the plow? We've got to walk through our productive journey, not seizing pseudo-control of our situations. We got to yield sovereignty to the sovereign. We got to allow him to bear our grief with us, because the love is too big for you to manage. You need help with the author of the story to get your scene right. Surely he's borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Hebrews said he's acquainted with the feeling of our infirmities. That's what strikes me about the text. He's concerned about scleroderma. He's concerned about cancer. He's concerned about multiple sclerosis. He's concerned about HIV. He's concerned about end-stage renal disease. But that's not what touches him. What touches him is the feeling of our infirmities. He cares how you feel about it. He cares how you feel about the death. See, he's already taken care of death once and for all. But he cares how you feel about it. And he wants to carry that for you. Jesus, he wept, but he did that in solidarity with us. But a moment after the weeping that put him in common cause with our humanity, he did something that puts him out of step with solidarity and puts him in singularity as the only person who could do what he did next. Anybody can weep over death, but only one man could unwind death. And when he said, Lazarus, come forth, he reversed the cycle of loving and losing. As he wept, the liquefaction of release ran down his face. Because what Jesus realized and what he wants us to know is resurrection doesn't happen without release. You can't resurrect what's living. But if you release it, it can be resurrected. Lazarus died imperfect, but today Lazarus is perfect. My grandmother doesn't have leukemia anymore. My mother doesn't have metastatic breast cancer anymore because they died in Christ and have been raised in the resurrection power. Now, we can still cry about it. It's release. But after I'm done with my release to him, then I can say with Paul, I know who I have believed. And I'm persuaded that he's able to keep that which I've committed. That's not just our profession of faith. That's not just our lifestyle. It's not just our finance. It's our relationships. When I commit those to him, he can keep them against that day. How do we learn how to lose? We learn how to lose when we learn how to play a long game. We learn how to lose when we see things in the resurrected perspective. We learn how to lose when we see that what we think we lost, we didn't own from the beginning. We were stewards, we were collaborators, we were co-laborers, we were fellow sojourners. We were never the owners of our experience. The relationships that we valued and treasured never belonged to us to begin with. They were loaned to us as part of the symphony of love. We heard the notes. We played some of them. They vibrated through our hearts and our spirits, our emotions, and even our bodies. But we were never the conductor. We were never the author of the song. We were just there to play in the band. Paul said it this way. He said, I count everything as loss if I can gain the knowledge of him. Jesus said, if you learn how to lose, you'll learn how to win. If you know how to let go, I know how to put things back. If you know how to lift, I know how to let it settle down. If you know how to release, I know how to resurrect. If you know how to love, I know how to take death and make it live again. That's his promise. It's up to us to believe it. Because if we do,